almost every day, but fortunately for you, you're not going to hear it from me. We have a great panel today. Mónica Bello from CERN, she's the director of the Arts CERN program. Enrique Rivera, curator of the Biennial of Media Arts in Chile. Antonio Hales from the ALMA project, the scientific director, right, of the ALMA project. And Luciano, I forgot your last name. It's
Nicolette.
¿Cómo?
Nicolette. Nicolette.
Nicolette.
Eso.
He's an artist that participated in the residence program. And with that, I leave you to the main show.
Okay. Hello, thank you for being here, and thank you, the organization, for inviting me to present the program that we are running at CERN since 2011. And it's called Arts at CERN. And as you probably, you are seeing somewhere in my presentation. Can you put my presentation, please?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is that? Yeah. We use this title, Great Art for Great Science, which I think is resume quite a lot the vision of the program. As you probably know, you've seen this image before, and it tells a lot about what CERN is for the public. But I would like to show you perhaps a bit what CERN is actually and what can offer for the artistic practitioners or anyone related to culture. And so the first thing I'm going to do is to put a video, and we'll start.
The world is changing, spinning in new directions and ways, in both the arts and the sciences. Take the largest machine on the planet, the Large Hadron Collider, which collides particles just under the speed of light. 4 giant detectors, which take snapshots of the collisions invisible to the naked eye. Add over 60 other cutting-edge experiments, and you have CERN, the largest particle physics laboratory on the planet. Then every year, select exciting artists of any age who want to make creative collisions with the minds and imaginations of the scientists and engineers at CERN. And you have Arts at CERN, the laboratory's homegrown official arts science experiment, colliding great arts with great science, in sound, music, dance, visual arts, and much, much more.
Okay, this is just a very short video to show you something of the things that we've been doing for the last 5 years. And here you have CERN. CERN is between France and Switzerland, in the border, close to the Lake of Geneva, in the land that used to be before the time of inauguration in 1953, countryside. And at that time, a group of scientists that were scattered all over the world decided there was a time for coming back to Europe and to set up a huge lab that represent the effort and the vision for collaborating after a very difficult era in the post-war era. So these people gather here, fund resources, and look for the spirit to set up a place for fundamental research. And at that time, the center was called Center for Nuclear Physics, European Center for Nuclear Physics. Today, the nuclear is a bit outdated, and is today focused on particle physics, a very specific area of research that looks to many questions, crucial for understanding, for instance, the origin of the universe, or dark matter, or what is gravity, the big secrets of that will discover us eventually the structure of matter and how different phenomena interact and is impacting the creation of new particles and etc. So here is the land, and underneath you see this big tunnel. The perimeter of the tunnel is 27 kilometers length, and can be in some places 100 meters underneath the land, the ground, or between 50 and 100 meters. It's also a big place for discovery, big machines created with bare hands by mechanical engineers, just pulling cables and creating these huge monsters of machinery, which are really outstanding. And there you have this guy, Tim Berners-Lee, very important for all of us because he was the inventor of internet, and he developed it there. Underneath you have the crowd computing, so what I'm showing you is the big inventions that we know from CERN. But then in 2011, being such an iconic place, there was something that asked the scientists and the directors of CERN to open up to society what they were actually doing. And we were part of this strategy. In 2011, a cultural policy for the arts was signed and approved by the Directorate of CERN. And was not because before we didn't have artists coming to CERN, but was because we have so many proposals. And this was the way to articulate and filter as well the good ideas, things that were really worthy to investing and to set up a policy framework for this, a program of residencies at CERN happened. And the first program was Collide International Award, which is still running these days. Here you can see quickly the strategies for the cultural policy, creating a cultural advisory board, unifying a system to welcoming artists to CERN, instigate the artistic residency scheme, and look for cultural expertise in a place where the whole community were particle physics. So for the first time, they welcome a curator as well as many other people related to the arts. Right now we have, this is very boring slide, sorry about that, but it's just to show you what we have in 2015 and 16 today. We have Collide, the Artists in Residency program. This offers the opportunity to artists from all over the world to come with us for 3 months with a prize, 15,000 Swiss francs. And we have also a Swiss strand, so there is the International Collide and the Swiss Collide. We have also Accelerate. We organize Accelerate with different countries, 2 per year. And from the beginning, well, the program started working with Greece and Austria, this Switzerland, Korea, Taiwan, Lithuania, and this year we will announce very soon after summer a new call with Korea and Croatia. And then we have guest artists, and you see that's Anselm Kiefer, Goshka Makuga, Antonio Montadas, Pascal Dussapin, Trevor Paglen, Agnes Meyer-Brandis, Alfonso Borragan, etc. Many artists with a very high profile internationally came to spend between 3 and 5 days with us. So yeah, we have partnerships all over the globe, and we are always looking for new partnerships. So if you are interested, please let's talk later after the panel. And then we have really nice pictures of these experiences. Here you have Bill Fontana and Subodh Patil, because when the artists come to CERN, we try to put the artist as a researcher as well as the scientist. It's an environment for fundamental research. So we like to think of art as a fundamental research framework as well. The residency is fully focused to this research, to exploration, and production is beyond the residency. We don't invest in production during the residency because the time at CERN is unique, unusual experience, a place where you discuss with every physicist or with experimentalists about the machinery, the technology they have, or about any other issue related to your own interests, from sociological, philosophy of science, etc. So the proposals we look for during the open calls are looking for good ideas for research and exploration in this framework. We also have, as Pei and Wenqi said, a phase of being a tourist. And this is unavoidable because you have people like Professor Samuel Ting that are Nobel Prizes, and it's just really overwhelming to see and to be with them in the same desk and talking about particle physics or sending an accelerator to the International Space Station or thinking about cosmic rays and the impact in cloud formation. So the first time the artist is there is really, really unusual and powerful. We have people from very emerging artists from Switzerland, Fragment Team, for instance, Ryoji Aikida. I mean, I think Ryoji doesn't need presentation, but he created 2 amazing installations after his and during his time at CERN, like supersymmetry or micro-macro. And we have also the side, looking at the environment as anthropological or ethnographic adventure. Or you have Semiconductor, the artists that have been here, and they spent 3 weeks at least working with 30 physicists. Luis Alvarez Gaumet, the guy you are seeing in the picture, who said about their experience. I try to show them how we develop an intuition for quantum mechanics by applying the principles and getting used to the way it functions. Because honestly, I cannot explain quantum mechanics even to a scientist. So working this intuition and understanding that the process is very extended and it depends very much on the case of the artist is something that we are very aware of. On the contrary, Joe, half of Semiconductor team, said particle physics is the most challenging subject we've ever worked with because it's so difficult to create a tangible idea about it, and that's kind of what we are all about. So it's very beautiful ideas that have the chance to be developed further during the residency. So I wanted to show you a video of an actual production that unusually took place at CERN after the residency, but before doing that, I want to show you an artist and scientist just joking and very funny to each other, but also talking about what being at CERN means. And this is Jan Peters and Neil Hartmann. They were Neil was the scientific partner of Jan Peters while he was here, and this was a very informal interview we did with them. So
that will be security training.
I would need sound with this.
Security training.
Radiation safety. Yeah.
And probably then I will have my own dosimeter, and then I can go with you to the pixel detector. And I always think about one scene of my film that will be like, I have my dosimeter, the one that shows digitally, and I will control it and find out that I have like a dose of 3,000 plus. You know, because I turn it the other way around. Instead of 600, I read 9,000. 6,000, I read 9,000. And so I cannot get in anymore. And so I will make a photocopy of your eyes, I will put it on my glasses, and then I will show your glasses to the optical recognition, and then I will go in as you. Only to find out later that I was just mixing it up.
Yeah. Yeah, the only plot hole here you'll see is that actually the door basically is open. You know what I mean?
You have to knock it for my favorite. So if it's open, why do?
So it's a very funny episode. Maybe it's not so meaningful to you as for me, but Jan Peters was saying that he need to go through the procedures to getting an experiment with a dosimeter of radiation, and Neil patiently said, okay, don't worry about it because the door is open for you and for everyone. So just to finish, CERN is very open to any discussion, any experience, and any new voice, especially when the art is able to make good questions and formulate new ways of looking at science. And the experience of being there is really unique, and this uniqueness is what really makes my day meaningful while I direct the program. So thank you very much.
Okay. CERN is certainly one of the biggest experiments in the world, and actually what they do is they do science on the the smallest things ever, what happens inside atoms and the particles inside those atoms. On the other side of the physical scales, the largest and grandest scales of the universe, is what ALMA does. ALMA is, you will explain it much better than me, but they look at what happens at the other streams and physics that are actually very, very different. And they meet in many places, and one of them is art. So I don't know if you want to start.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, first I know it's a real honor to be with Mónica here in this round table, because we have been following her steps since a long time ago. No? So thank you very much for the opportunity to, well, of course, to Antonio and Luciano for joining me in this conversation. That it's, well, the idea is to give you the experience of what we did in Chile around the Sounds of ALMA project. That was a project inspired in the ALMA observatory, that it's the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, that it's located in the driest desert on the world. And it's located there because the humidity of the air, it's almost non-existent. So the climatological conditions permits that this scientific research center can develop the objective that later Antonio will explain it in a much more detail. Well, I wanted to give you this trip to Atacama Desert. As I was mentioning, this is located in one of the driest deserts in the world. And scientists are making a huge effort to be here, to work here in this location. So basically what I wanted to show you is a geographical insight of what we are talking about here. So, for example, this is the facilities of ALMA. Here you can start to see these lines. No? Can you see these lines that are the moving telescopes that move in different directions, so they can position it and focus in one specific point in the sky. No? So for us, we come from media art, from films. So this was completely amazing, because to know that these antennas, this group of antennas, this very outstanding scientific research center, it's located in Chile, was one of the main reasons, because we wanted to be close to them, because basically people that work with media art, and to have these elements is for real to work with new media, the so-called new media. This is for us new media, not the computer or the phone. This is or CERN, for example. This is the limit of the scientific research. So to contextualize, we developed this in the occasion of the first Sónar Sound in Santiago, the Sónar+D, that was curated together with Paloma Chicharro, that is here in the room, and we decided together to develop this approach to the astronomers and to invite them to work in the context of music. So we developed this idea of create this ALMA Sounds in a conversation together with Valeria and Antonio that we asked them for this meeting, and instantly, in less than an hour, we decided to have this transformation of frequencies of the universe into sounds. And this was the most difficult part of the thing. It was very easy to come to the conclusion to make this, but then the task for Antonio and Ricardo Finger was very heavy. And well, basically one of the influence, we have several influences to get to this point. First of all was Roberto Mata, that was a surrealist painter, that he was always working with this notion of music and art. Very playfully, he was developing a lot of layers and also bringing this notion of cosmology, cosmogony into his pieces. So for us was a huge influence that from painting, that it's a painting that has a lot of movement, a lot of joyless. It makes was a huge influence for us in this relation of art and astronomy, of course. He was talking about quantum physics, about relativity, together with the surrealist movement in Paris, in France, and also was developing this notion of immersive paintings. No? So the idea was that you can go into the painting and be part of this universe, of this pictorial universe. On the other hand, there was another influence for us, that was Simone Chamberlain, that this is a more political part, because she was afraid of the Cold War, so the nuclear bomb. So she was making these paintings also about the university of the space, that in the future we will have to go to live outer space because we will destroy everything. That it's somehow a very dystopic notion, maybe for some science fiction, for others very real, but this notion of that at the end we will have to live in the space also. So there was a lot of science fiction that was coming into these ideas and into this ground that really like us. Basically, well, this is, for example, one early experiment that we asked to Fernando Godoy, that it's also the director of a festival of art, sound art festival in Chile named Tsunami, to develop this installation named Solar Birds, where the idea was to bring this, to feed these Arduino cards into, and to transform this, the energy of the sun into sounds. No? So, as I was saying before, this was the whole idea to bring together all these initiatives, these island initiatives into this program, a more solid program, in the context of the Sónar+D, where we invite ALMA to develop this initiative named Sounds of ALMA, where basically in a methodology that now Antonio will explain, what we did was to invite several artists to create music, film, sounds, sound installations, whatever, into a work of art. That the idea, basically, what we was trying to say here was that all this sound, all this knowledge belonged to all of us. So the idea was to have these works, these sounds from the frequencies, and to give to different musicians the sounds, and they compound basically some pieces. Luciano, for example, developed one very interesting work that he developed, a vinyl with this. So this is something that also he will explain later. But there was a lot of other artists that developed their works inspired not just in the frequencies, but also in the concepts and the notions that, for example, for ALMA are unknown knowledge yet, like for example dark matter or dark energy. So, for example, I would like to show you one piece. This is from Felipe Venegas. I will show you, I'm looking for the for the work of the RAF, that this was very interesting because Playground, that is this media viralizing organization from Barcelona, they developed this video for Facebook, and in less than 1 month we had thousands of visits to this project, and it was very interesting because in general this knowledge from the astronomical observatories are kind of difficult to understand. So this was a key point where we could give to a lot of people the ado to enter to this knowledge through these other techniques and other methodologies. So now will be interesting, Antonio, that for example we can show the video. Doesn't understand Spanish. Well, the idea of it was to capture the gas emanations of ALMA that travel for more than 1,500 years.
Yeah, so thanks again for the invitation to come here and present our project. It was it's very attractive, of course, for us scientists to participate with and interact with the art because many reasons. I mean, art is undoubtedly a very powerful tool for communication to shake society. There's also many parallels between what we do at ALMA, trying to search outside for our origins, the origins of the universe, the origins of planets, the origins of life. And one parallel with the artists is that they also search for answers for the same questions, but they search from within. So it was very attractive for us, but also very challenging because from the scientist side, we want to keep the rigorosity of the sciences, okay? But how can we take those ideas and break the rigorosity and break them down and make them easy for society? For instance, in the case of these sounds, how could we transform the signals, the information that comes from the sky, into sounds, but trying to keep it rigorous? So at first it was, we saw some difficulties, but thinking about it, discussing with other scientists, and talking with Ricardo Finger at Universidad de Chile, we tried to conserve the analogies between sound waves and electromagnetic waves. Because they're both waves, they both behave similarly, both can be described with amplitude, frequencies, superposition of waves, etc. So that's what we recovered, and we transformed into sound. Basically, the signal that we got from ALMA are spectrum that you see here, which is basically different tones at different frequencies, that represent actually the chemical composition of the universe. Okay, each of these lines that you see in this graph correspond to carbon monoxide, methanol, water, the same molecules that make us, but that we investigate in the sky. And the similarity with sound is that when you play a tone, it's exactly the same. It's a peak at a given frequency. So what we did is we took this spectrum, in this case from the nebula in Orion, which is a star-forming region in the constellation of Orion, and we moved that entire spectrum into the audible spectrum, okay? And we took all those signals that we have studied up to that time and converted them into a sound bank, as Enrique described, that can be used by artists, by different artists, in order to create sounds. That's more or less what is described here in this video. It makes the analogy between what we will get if you play in a guitar, what we get from the sky, and how can you transpose those two, but keeping the information that came from the sky, the amplitudes, the frequencies, untouched. So the only subjective part, the only part in which we touched and we cheated, if you want, is by moving them arbitrarily to some part in the audible spectrum. And that sound bank was made available in December to the community of artists. Just in December, it was downloaded by 3,000 people, and we also asked kindly different artists from the world to create musicalizations, to make the music they make, and that's more or less the experience that Luciano is going to describe now, who kindly agreed to make a few tracks for the project.
Yes, I mean, when the project came in, of course, as any person or as an artist, as a painter, or whatever it is, it sounded really exciting, and of course, it was like something that I was super motivated. But at the same time, you have your imagination playing tricks, because there's a lot of parts from the more scientific part that you don't know. So when I received the sound bank, when I received from Antonio, of course, the imagination were playing a lot of role in it. And when I got the sounds, all the sound banks sounded more like drum shot, very dry and very difficult to work. So, of course, everybody imagined that you would have maybe something that is almost design or melody or something like this. And the sounds, they were really rough and more like, almost like drum machines. So I decided to work and use them more as drum samples and start to compose music around that without changing the idea that, because of course it's written by human, and what we expect out of such a project is that it's almost that you have I would say like a melody or a sequence that would come from outside, which isn't. It's like basically all the interpretation comes from as a human, as an artist. And that was, I would say, the first challenge. That it was how can we keep the most real or the reality with what actually we got when it was about sound and frequencies, yeah. So that's more or less what we experienced there.
Well, just to finish, to let us know that we have here in the market lab space where you can go deep into this.
And listen to the sounds, basically, also, yeah.
Exactly, and you can play also the sound and create your own music. You can find an interactive installation of Trimex Collective together with Amigo de los Insectos, and a space to create your own sounds powered by the loft. So we were waiting for you there, and of course for a nice conversation now.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we started a little late, so we're going to have to cut the discussions by a lot, almost everything. Yep. So I have a lot of questions to do, and I'm going to pick just one of them, the ones that I think about a lot. What do you think is the audience that is interested in this? I mean, there's a lot of interest from the scientists and artists that get together in this. Maybe not all of them, but then this is presented to the world somehow, right? So, in an exhibition, in a Biennial, or in the web, do you think this is a new type of audience that never consumed this type of art before because they couldn't reach it because they were too niche, or is it something new that is being created? Is this a new type of, let's call it entertainment, right? That didn't exist before as now, and there's new audience that just appeared from somewhere. What is your experience, for instance?
You asked me.
Yeah.
Well, I think I don't like the term of entertainment.
Yeah, okay.
At all. But I think my audience, in the specific case of CERN, I have audience that become mutates all the time, because you are offering experiences, and depending of the moment, of the phase, of the experiment, of the inwards, outwards. With that, I mean that I have an audience, an obvious audience that is a scientist. I have an international audience that is looking at what is happening in this very iconic lab in which scientists like Ryoji Aikida or Semiconductor are researching and stopping their activity just to do something with these ideas, very powerful ideas. And then there is the whole society. Okay. Honestly, I think I'm not too concerned about the audience, because I think we are doing as we walk, and this is a process, and there is a commitment in it. But I'm not so concerned. I think it's like when you take the case of the, let's say, the invention of the internet 20 years later, or maybe a few years later, society realized that this was so powerful and was a marginal episode in the CERN activities. And I like to think of a parallelism that this could happen with audience as well. What is particle physics and art doing together? We'll see, maybe in 15 years.
Well, for us, it's very important to reach society because we're very we're very known for our achievements in the scientific community. In 5 years of operation, we're already making groundbreaking discoveries, but that doesn't reach completely the society. Yeah. Whereas with these sort of projects, we are certainly broadening the participation, the understanding, and the discussion about these topics, which would otherwise be secluded to just a part of society. So we're very, very excited of being here, of sharing this with you guys, and with all the people that are downloading and posing questions, because, as Luciano said, this is just the beginning of another search for more sounds, and for, as Monica says, who knows what, you know? So that's over here, and thank you very much for taking.
No, thank you all for
just
coming here. And
very little, like we as curators, artists, scientists, we have to learn how to infiltrate old spaces with these messages. So I think that all fields are relevant because it's a human responsibility also, humanity. So yeah, thank you very much.
No, thank you. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.